What happened on the Ascension on the Alienist? Stay tuned.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Hey, Alienist fans. I am your host, 123 Jackie V on all platforms. Candy is not with us today, but she will be back next week. And we have Alice and Takira with us.
Hello.
Where can the people find you, ladies?
You can find me at Alice L. Ford on Twitter and at Alice's Adventures on Earth on Instagram and Facebook.
I'm so vibing to this music right now. I'm Takira
I like that
Shabrae.
your lipstick matches your shirt.
Thanks. You know, we got this Valentine's Day thing going on.
That's right.
But I'm Takira Shabrae, and you can find me on Instagram and newly to Twitter at Takira_Shabrae. This makes me want to sing my Instagram.
I know. This is really, really beautiful. I'm loving
Thanks,
it.
Steve.
So, okay. This episode was bananas. It was edge of the seat, trying to figure out who's he, what's he's going on.
Slap.
We open up with the Scooby team together trying to hatch a plan to catch the killer. The first thing I thought of, though, when they were doing this whole plan is that the killer seems to have already developed an intimate relationship with the people he's murdering. So that was the first flaw I saw in the plan. I mean, it's a good idea to have someone on the inside to kind of be watching out, but to me, the idea that the killer would just go for some random boy that he has no connection with didn't seem to click with me.
Right. And then it freaks you out because we clearly know that he had been watching him, because the killer said to Stevie, "Glad to not see you on the street anymore."
Yeah.
And that just like, I'll try to contain, but it just made me want to just jump through the TV, like the TV computer, wherever we were watching it, and like grab John, grab Marcus. Like, I'll try to contain myself until we get to that part of the segment.
Well, right, and of course there's so much misdirection, just like everywhere throughout the whole episode.
Yes, we have the Van Buren misdirection, which is what we were talking about in the last episode, whether or not Van Bergen. Sorry, I was thinking of Martin Van Buren, who's not the same. So we have that misdirection where we think last episode there was some confusion whether or not Willem was the killer, and this episode he's clearly not, because his death happens at the same time that the other murder happened. So Connor killed him and threw him in
had nothing
the
else
ocean.
to lose.
How like surprising was that? Because I was like, wait, all of a sudden Connor like actually really doesn't like this guy when he was protecting him before.
I mean,
was like,
Captain Connor doesn't have anything to lose. He's like, screw this. I don't have my job anymore.
and I'm not getting free beers
Right,
anymore.
Right, exactly.
I gotta pay a nickel for booze? What?
Exactly.
Oh, heck no.
And then he
bullets to the
calls him
head.
Patty, which is like, it's not like that derogatory, but it's like a slightly derogatory like term for an Irish person. So you could tell that the guy was not was being a little bit racist against him.
Right.
So,
Right. Took it the wrong way.
Yeah,
It was the wrong day to piss somebody off for not having a job.
Yeah, I think Connor has like all of this built up anger that he's finally like, well, screw this and screw everything else.
Yeah,
He's the
absolutely.
killer.
And some of the people in the chat, Madeline is also agreeing that
Hi,
she was
Madeline.
shocked that he was shot, and she thought that Willem was gonna jump, and I did too actually at first. I was like,
yeah?
oh, maybe he's gonna jump.
I thought he was gonna do some kind of like cool. Well, yeah, it was pretty cool. Like whip out his rope and then his like hiker, because we've been talking this whole time about him being a rock climber and all of this cool like acrobatic stuff, and then he didn't, and I was like, whoa, twist, okay, but that's what I expected. It's a little strange.
So what are our hashtag it means something for this week?
Yeah,
Well, I'll start it.
Okay, yes, please start.
I don't
start.
know. Yeah, exactly.
So right when the episode started, there was that dead white horse, and to me, I was like, ooh, either that's like the end of innocence or the end of. I wasn't really sure what it meant right at first, but I knew that it meant something, because why would you, like, I don't even, like, why would you even open with, like, the signal of a white stallion being dead? White usually is, like, either surrendering or something like that. There's so many hidden meanings that could have. And then I think, you know, when we saw the number one suspect kind of like, okay, he's now out of the picture, maybe those kind of tied together into some sort of, you know.
I had three different things that white horse made me think of. The first was just foreshadowing, because like when we saw that horse dead in the beginning, I was like, we're going to see another dead kid by the end of the episode. So that was kind of like the bookend. And we couldn't for the life of us, even like rewinding and looking, I couldn't tell if it was Joseph or Rosie who died. And if it was Rosie, to me that makes it the ultimate bookend, because Rosie was the one petting the horse in the beginning.
Oh,
right.
I didn't catch that.
If not, then I don't know.
Yeah, and I know we had a lot of people in the chat also asking who that was at the end,
right?
Because everyone was like, who was in the room with the window open, and so I know that was a common question.
And I tried to, like you said, rewind, and you mentioned that that person that was dead at the end wasn't wearing a wig or something. Maybe try to look at the clothes.
No, they were wearing, their wig was like on the ground right next to them.
Right.
And I know that Joseph in the previous scenes had taken his wig off.
Right.
Because he said he was too hot in the room with the window closed. So I don't think it was Joseph, but I'm not really sure.
Who knows?
I'm for bookendness, not because I want the character of Rosie to be dead, but it seems like for bookendedness, it would seem like it would be Rosie. And also, what you were talking about, like where a white horse represents like the death of innocence, I think now that Takira and I are getting farther into the books, you see that the children at the time, especially these homeless, like vagrant children, they have to really grow up quickly, and so they're talking like adults and they're acting like adults. You have Rosie like blatantly like hitting on people, and then teaching Stevie how to like properly flirt,
right?
And
even like controlling more a little bit, like take me upstairs,
and then
or I'm sorry,
Marcus,
Marcus,
and then you have Marcus telling him a very adult joke, and that was like a point where I was like, oh my gosh, this kid is like way too young to hear these jokes, but then I'm like, but he's like,
he's not too old to not too young to do some other things.
So well, and honestly, now that you said that, and I've now like put the two and two together, I think it was Rosie at the end, because the wig was like reddish, curly, and long. So I think
for all of those that have DVR, we're all gonna like go back and zoom in.
And the other problem that Alice pointed out is that like when they're doing these shots of the dead kids, they're obviously using like a body, you know, like a dummy or something. So it's like it's not going to look exactly like the kids, so it's a little bit hard to put that together. And then my third thought was just a cheesy kind of like reference to horse gambling, where you know you backed the wrong horse. So I was thinking of like they all backed Stevie, expecting like Stevie to be able to reel in the killer, and the killer still evaded them.
Yeah,
I like that. And everybody was way too cool with the dead horse with maggots in its nose in the middle of the street. I don't know if anyone else, like, I know
that
this
was
is
another
like Gilded Age, but I was like, really? Nobody cares? Nobody sees this.
Not to rewind back to the pea being thrown out in the first like couple of episodes, but that's exactly what it reminded me of. I was like, oh yeah, New York City at this time was just like a dirty dirt ball hole.
It was also the prostitute capital of America.
There you go.
And I actually have some fun facts.
Oh yeah, share us the brothel facts. Alice's brothel facts.
Buffs out there. Yeah, so it was the prostitute capital of the United States. Now, I couldn't find any facts on child prostitutes. So most of these are based on women, but some women, and they range in age from 12 to 30. They kind of maxed out at 30. But some of them slept with 20 to 28 men a day. So usually like about 150 men a week. And they would sometimes earn like 50 cents, but sometimes a couple of dollars. And in today's terms, that would mean about like $300,000 a year for a lot of these women. And the police were a big part of the actual system of how it worked. They would actually sometimes take you and introduce you to prostitutes if you were interested. They'd be like, oh, hey.
That doesn't surprise me.
What are you looking for tonight? And if you were like, oh, I'm looking for something fun and exciting, they'd be like, oh, let me take you over to this street.
Like concierge?
Yeah, kind of like a concierge. So the police were heavily involved in helping out the hookers and the pimps.
Interesting.
Oh, and then this is the best part. So there was actually a book called The Gentleman's directory. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of it, but it was basically like the Fromers for prostitutes. And they would actually give prostitutes reviews, evaluations. And also, like, if you moved from one brothel to another, it would be in this book and say, oh, you know, Susie's no longer at this street. She's now at this street on Bowery or whatever. So it was like a whole interesting little thing. It was a little black book, which I'm pretty sure is where we got the term little black book, you know. But there was more than 500 brothels in 1870 in New York.
There's this book, and I can't remember the name of it. I'll mention it on the next episode, and I'll tweet it out to you guys, that I read that was about prostitution in New York around this time. And it was actually like an in-depth kind of first-person study of like one particular madam. And it's a really fascinating book, and I'm so sorry I can't like remember the name off the top of my head, but I'll go back through. I take a catalog of everything I've read because I'm on Goodreads. But it also reminds me of Harlots, which is a show on Hulu that's set in England in a different time period. But it's the thing that reminds me of what you were saying is that at the time, women didn't have like a means of like independently making money for the on a whole. I mean, I'm sure there were like little jobs here or there, but as far as like making a crap ton of money in a big way, prostitution was it.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's sad, but
and probably also for the children too, you know.
Yeah.
So
I mean, we have that one really sad scene where Chrysler walks by those 3 like children hovering in the cold, and you're thinking, okay, for some of these kids who are like orphans, their options are so limited that they see this as like the only way for them to like make money and have a home.
Right.
Yeah, and he kind of just the look that he gives too is a little strange. He kind of like looks, I don't know if it's in like disappointment or if he like wants to do something and then doesn't, or just I don't know, that kind of
I felt that look was and this I think ties into some of the book's themes where you have the main characters, they really want to do something about these kids, but it's just like
it's too much.
Like there's too much poverty and terrible things going on that they can only save like one thing at one time, so they're laser focusing in on this investigation. And it's kind of mirrored in the scene where you have Moore talking to Joseph, where he's like, have you ever tried to do anything else? You can see here how he's really trying to help him, but he doesn't really have the means. And Chrysler, you know, I think that pause was him thinking like, what could I do to help these kids, and realizing like I've already got a house full of children that I'm trying to help. Like
that's true.
Yeah.
Speaking of the team, it means something, which I'm kind of on fence of. So we know that in this episode we're following the Christian calendar. You know, obviously they think that might be some sort of motive.
I think it's specifically Episcopalian, which again, and this is coming from the books where they manage to when they're examining the killer, and they think maybe if he's an immigrant, because now we have an idea that from Chrysler, like perhaps he's an immigrant because he's reacting to these immigrant communities. They are able to narrow down and I'm not going to tell you which countries they are, but they're able to narrow down the killer to a certain amount of countries because of that. And so I think it's specifically Episcopalian because only certain immigrants would be Episcopalian.
Got you. That brings me like it means something is the fact that, you know, they're 9 days after, I guess the first time when they were talking, when they at least attempted, 9 days from them was the Pentecost. So it's 7 days after Easter is Pentecost. There have been 7 boys so far. And then there's 7 people on team Dr. Chrysler, right? Like we have the twins, we have Sarah, John, Dr. Chrysler, Cyrus. Is that all of them? I think I just listed them all pretty quickly. Okay,
so.
Oh yeah, well, there's 7 of them. So, and I know like I don't really know what 7 has to do with it. Normally 7 is a good thing when it comes to Christianity. So I think I don't know if that has something to do with it. Maybe it's the next date that the next boy is going to be killed. But that's it means something kind of small, but
or maybe it kind of good versus evil. If all the 7 is
there you
supposed to be good, the holidays are supposed to be good, and you're fighting the bad.
That going a little deeper. There you go. Thank you. It could mean something, but yeah, that's my hashtag. It means something.
I think for my it means something, I'm going to draw us into a larger conversation because my it means something is Chrysler's arm. And there are 2 things that I think that in my mind could have happened here, because it obviously means something that he's lied about his arm this whole time. We know that he can play piano with both hands. He has played piano like very well with both hands before when he was younger. So it's, well, actually, no, it's 2 things. Sorry. It's just 2 things. It's either he's outright lying to people. He's like trying to make himself seem crippled because I guess he's trying to relate to the people around him somehow. Or he has, like I've said before, where he's not willing to face his own mental deformities. He, until the point Sarah said something to him, and he got so, like, he did something that I thought was so upsetting and uncharacteristic of him, and upsetting, where he slaps Sarah in the face when she calls him a coward. No longer shipping them, not shipping a man who slaps her in the face. Thanks.
That's right.
Anyway,
I would have slapped him back.
Right.
Or pulled the arm, something. It would have hurt. It would have hurt.
So it's like, I feel like maybe up until that point, he didn't even realize that he was doing that. Like, he had some mental, like, block or problem that was causing him to think that he had a deformed arm.
I definitely think that he's hiding the real story behind his arm, because
go ahead.
He's definitely hiding it. Something happened. It has some kind of tie that has to do with the killer, whether it's another boy with. I really think it's this mother thing that Sarah keeps provoking. I think that something happened to his arm. The mother was either in on it, didn't protect him, whatever. And he doesn't want to, kind of like Sarah said, you're afraid to face who you are. Whatever was happening at the moment that arm issue happened, that's what's going on.
And in the chat, Madeline made a good suggestion that he was abused by his father, and that the Christian calendar could also mean 7 deadly sins, and then also that it probably has to do something with his parent, with the killer's parents, and his past, as far as that goes. But then as far as Chrysler goes, she thinks that his father maybe did something to him.
I do too,
and we've also confirmed that Chrysler, I think they mentioned before that Chrysler had immigrant parents, but now we know for sure that both of his parents were immigrants from Germany.
Right, from the news article.
Yes, so we know that specifically from the news article.
Right. I'm just excited because when I hear these things, it just makes me think season 2. So, there's only so many more episodes. There's 4 more. I don't think we're going to dive into all of this Dr. Kaiser things, and I'm just excited because I think it's just signs of season 2.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people are interested in that slap.
Yeah.
That happened. And
it's just no excusing it. I mean, no matter how upset you are, no matter what's going on in your mind, like, there's just no excuse for you to behave that way.
And can you imagine, like, what Sarah feels like? I mean, she tells John, who she knows has some type of interest in him, that she might be in love with Dr. Chrysler. Like, can you imagine how that feels?
That was heartbreaking.
I think a piece of her is she's just so intrigued by Dr. Chrysler, but then she knows that he's not hiding she knows that he's hiding something in the past. I mean, it's kind of like that thing you don't know a lot about. It draws you in to do. So she's probably just doing research on this guy. Like, hey, can I date him? Can I marry him? What's really this guy's story? Like background checks nowadays on guys.
Well, and I thought John was going to be a lot more upset when she said that, and he was just kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
And what were we talking about?
He's like, I stopped drinking for you. I bought a typewriter. Lord knows how much that thing cost. Like,
I think he doesn't know what to make of her, because, like, she turned him down kind of twice at this point, but she kissed but he kissed her and there didn't seem to be a problem with it. So I don't know. Yeah, I think he
with him.
Yeah, I think he thinks like I don't know what to think, and he's trying to be cool about it.
Yeah, but that slap.
That slap. And then someone else just brought up a good point as well about the weird scene with Mary and Chrysler.
Yes. So to counteract, you have this like violent scene where he slaps Sarah in the face for calling him out for what he is, and then you have this very intimate scene where Mary has a cut on her finger and Chrysler's like all but like sucking the last drop of blood out like a vampire.
Yeah.
That was really interesting though, because I never knew that, because you know whenever you get a cut you like automatically stick it in your mouth, and I'm like, well it's like there's a biological reason for it. I'm not a weirdo.
No, he's a weirdo. I mean, maybe to your own, but the fact that he was like,
I don't go around sucking other people's bloody fingers. Thank you.
There was, you call it intimate. I call it just, I was so disturbed because in my mind, even though I don't think Dr. Chrysler is the killer, but in my mind I was like, I wouldn't be surprised if this fool is the one doing all the killing. Like, it's obsessed with blood.
I thought that for a moment too.
I promise, like this whole like obsession with mental disorders that he's like, back then they didn't know. What's the split personality?
Schizophrenia.
Schizophrenia. They don't know about that.
Right.
Maybe. I mean, he could have two totally different personalities. He could be doing this on the side. I mean, that's what I thought. That's where my mind was when he put the.
I do feel like there is, again and again, because we're drawing back on the central theme, which seems to be like, what does it take to make a killer? And Chrysler keeps bringing up the point that like, in his own mind. And we had Teddy Roosevelt asking, like, is the killer, like, is he irrational or is he just as rational as you and I? And that would be scary, you know? And Chrysler seems to think, yeah, in his own mind, he's rational. You know, it might not be something that we see or we can see as rational, but to him it's rational. And so I think there is still this element of Chrysler, like, himself, like trying to identify with the killer, and then us as the audience seeing those parallels, like with the creepy blood-sucking scene, which did seem to me as intimate too, because they were having some like flirty eye thing going on before he was like, here's your hand back.
I don't know. She's like, oh, I know you like blood because I've lived with you long enough. Go ahead. Like, it's just this weird. I mean, because Cyrus saw the blood on his. It's like they know him.
Yeah.
Like they know the real him. And so even when he went out to the park, and I don't, kind of backtracking a little bit, but when Sarah came to his house, he was like, oh, where's Dr. Chrysler? And Cyrus was like, oh, he's in one of his trances. Like, and he was just chilling in the park looking at the lady with the empty baby stroller. I mean, like, all these things, I wouldn't be surprised. No. It's a little strange.
Yeah, and then Moore had that moment when he was talking to Joseph, and or maybe not that was the time, but he said the pleasure is in the pain as well. So there's a couple moments of mention of kind of similar scenarios.
Because that one madam that Chrysler talked to said the same thing.
Right. And John did say he read it in a book. Dr. Chrysler gave him a book to look in more to so that he can kind of somewhat get a feel of why the killer might be doing what he's doing, and
Well, it'll be interesting to see if Sarah is actually more attracted to Chrysler now that he slapped her. If the pleasure's in the pain.
Lord have mercy.
I hope not.
I hope not
Hopefully
either.
not.
But
What I did think was so. Let's talk a little bit about like we have a little feminist moment with the guys are divvying up the Scooby groups and basically telling Sarah that she can't go because she's a woman and Chrysler can't go because he's a cripple. And so that was like, essentially like they get their moment to bond and it ends up in not bonding. But then I thought it was interesting when you then have the parallel scene with Moore buying the typewriter because he's trying to like flirt with Sarah, or at least I thought that's how I thought that's how we're supposed to interpret it.
right.
But, and then she's like, well, men's fingers aren't deft enough to, like, do this work. And I was like, come on, girl, don't do that to him.
Right. I think she honestly was, I think she was kind of, it was like a get back. Like, you hear so many times, I mean, I'm sure, as women, we've had those moments when we've been kind of challenged.
Right.
I have, and when a man says that, or when a boy, whatever, says that, it kind of makes you like, what, I'm gonna do it anyway. Like, you know, had it this weekend. But you kind of had that moment and you kind of want to shove it in their face, like, well, you can't do this. You know, there's always that one moment when you're like, well, you can't have babies. Like, it's like this little jab. So I feel like she was like, you know, how does it feel when someone says you can't do something? So, I don't know.
I do think it's interesting though, because we have this show where we have all these young boys pretending to be women and doing it very well. So essentially female impersonation. And then we have in the adults these like strict lines of like dichotomy between like male and female and what men can do and what women can do. And part of me wants the characters themselves, because I know the series is making us think of this, but part of me wants the characters themselves to like start to push past the envelope, to see as we're seeing that these boys, like, you can still, like Sarah tells Stevie Taggart, you're still gonna be a guy, you know, you're still seen as a man or a boy, even though I'm putting this makeup on you, you know. And so I want to see the characters push past their own stereotypes, because I don't like it either way. Like, I don't like it when people say, oh, women can only do this one thing and then men can only do this one thing. Well, if John wants to learn how to type and he wants to learn how to type like 45 words per minute or whatever, good on him.
Let him learn. I think so. And I think it's just I think they're doing that like throughout the show. Like you said, I think they'll eventually get there for sure.
Well, Sarah did dress very masculinely in the during the heist, or during the first kind of setup when they're together in the carriage waiting. She was wearing a tie and
smoking a cigarette, like all like powerful.
There was actually a lot of smoking of cigarettes in this episode.
I know.
I noticed that more than I've like ever noticed in any of the other episodes. I was like, everyone's smoking.
Yeah.
Sarah usually smokes at home
by herself.
Exactly.
That's something stood out to me.
So it's like a private thing for her, and then it's like a nervous thing for Moore.
She's getting more comfortable being who she is around these guys. And poor John, he quit drinking, so he doesn't.
He needs another vice.
It's like he needs something else to purpose. But
I have another hashtag, it means something. I was just thinking of the whole smoking thing when Moore is on the roof and he's flicking the lighter, and Marcus is telling him like, don't, because they're gonna like don't flash the light, basically. I think maybe the killer knew, because we already know that the killer has sent them a letter knowing that these are the people that are watching him. So he's already aware that these are the people that are watching him, which makes their plan seem kind of wonky, because it's like, come on guys, you're all hanging out in the same place.
You're sitting right there.
Right. So he probably could have seen that light on the roof, knowing that they were coming for him and knowing that he would have to go for a different prostitute. And I feel like, so do we feel for sure that the guy who hit on Stevie is for sure the killer, and then he just went off and found somebody else?
Go ahead.
No, I think so, because also you just made me think of a good point, is that if I totally lost my train of thought, but if he knows, like, I mean, obviously a few episodes ago he gave them a letter and was like, I'm watching you, I know what you guys are doing, so he's hip to like their whole like setup, I think.
Right.
So he knows who Stevie is, probably. He knows like, oh, you guys are trying to set me up, cool, I'm gonna pretend like I'm going to like get Stevie, but then in the end I'm really not going to, so I'm like totally like double crossing you a gajillion times.
And the lighter on the roof, as soon as I saw where the little boy was, I'm like, all of these signs, hashtag it means something. The Statue of Liberty is holding a lighter up high on the roof, and that's exactly where the boy was found dead.
That's a good one.
So I'm just like, all of this, but I definitely think I was kind of the same point. He's toying with them, because he's like, okay, I'm writing you a letter, haha, but now I'm going to do it in your face. I know exactly what you're doing. I thought the same thing.
I have an insanely wild thought. So if he's toying with them, what if the man with the Bibles is actually the killer? Because we know that the killer is a religious person, and the guy it has some background where he had some religious fanaticism. And we know, like, the guy is carrying a huge bag, and so it's like there could be, like, he could have all of the climbing gear in that bag, and on top of it is just Bibles.
He does have a beard, so that would mean that a couple of people would need to be in on it. As the guy that was talking to Stevie had a beard. Unless it was just some random guy. I don't know.
Well, I think he's also scary looking. I mean, I think he definitely has something weird on his face because
Mm-hmm.
immediately when he came up to Stevie kind of gave this like,
yeah.
oh God, you're
terrible. And it wasn't just the hello. I think it was, the delivery of the entire message.
Well, hopefully, if Cyrus is still alive, and hopefully, if that's the guy if Stevie saw the actual killer, and if Cyrus is still alive, we have two people alive that could possibly ID this person that we know are more reliable.
Right.
Because it's hard for the kids are not doing a very good job of giving a description.
Right. Well, I don't know. Silver Teeth, you kind of think, that's why we were like, it's Willem. And unless, our fans actually were calling it all week last week. They're like, it's not Willem.
That's right.
So shout out to you guys.
Poor Willem.
Poor Willem.
Poor creepy Willem.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what his mother does or thinks. Or I feel like she's just gonna shun it.
What if
just
they
toss it to
pretend
the
that
side.
maybe she thinks he's in
He's
Buenos
gone
Aires.
Sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just like the timing, all of this is just so perfect. So, and she did say, it's not for long. So I don't know. We'll
Meaning
see.
she's probably going to go down there and try and find him so she can do whatever she was doing before.
Yeah.
Creepy.
Who knows? It's pretty gross.
I want to talk quickly about JP Morgan. Remember a couple episodes back when I was like, I'm interested in finding out more about JP Morgan. No, he's a bully. I'm done. I'm done. You're a bully, JP Morgan. So he basically steals Teddy Roosevelt for the photo op and tries to bully him into not doing his job because he's like, listen, you were hired by... I think he said you were hired by the Willems family.
Exactly.
And he heard from, it was like so gossipy. He's like, I heard from Bishop Porter who says Chrysler was doing this. I was like, what are you, gossip queen?
Right.
Well,
I think,
go ahead.
no, shoot for it.
Okay, so I don't know if anyone that watches knows what the 400 is. Did we talk about this before?
We haven't
No,
talked
but
about it
please
just
do.
yet.
Okay, so the 400 was basically think of like the Forbes top 500 or something for like richest people. It wasn't necessarily richest, but it was like the highest well-to-do society members. And there was a woman, I would have to look up her name, so maybe I'll tell you guys next week what her name was, but she basically would publish this listing every year. And a lot of the years it didn't have 400, it would be like 320. But basically, if you were on the list, you were like one of the most affluent people in the city, and everyone kind of had to bow down to you, and
That's
you're
powerful.
very important. So this list came out every year, and it was very highly esteemed, obviously, in the community.
And
And powerful people.
So now we know what that is.
our Candy actually called JP Morgan like on the second episode. You remember JP Morgan was her It Means Something?
Oh, yeah.
So shout out to you, Candy. We
Good job,
miss
Candy.
you.
Good job.
She called it. But yeah, he's definitely threatening him with that because he mentions that they elected you as commissioner. They elected the mayor. Like you need to pretty much respect who you're coming after, sort of thing. Which, I mean, we already knew that the police and all the higher ups kind of had something to do with covering this up,
I appreciate that Teddy Roosevelt, knowing that they put him in a position hoping that he would be a pawn, is not falling for it.
I love it.
I appreciate that
I
so
love it.
much, even though he was wrong about Willem. It's okay.
He's trying.
He's trying.
He's doing his job.
He let the Scooby Gang shut down the brothels to do their investigation.
Right.
I mean, he's doing what needs to be, like, you're proven, you're
Right.
supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. So
Exactly.
he's just trying to do his
Not
job.
back then.
Okay, clearly. But
Any last thoughts before we go into our fan of the week and our contest drawing?
yeah, I just want to say how frustrated I was with the fact that Marcus and John were so distracted from the killer. Like, there were so many moments during this episode that I was like, shut up. And then when John's like, hey, you stop, don't yell, just,
John is not an expert crime fighter. He is not.
He tries, but I mean, it was just, it was like it was all we had a moment in the episode when it was just all falling apart. I mean, like Cyrus was on the roof by himself. Sarah was getting slapped. Stevie was trying to figure out life, whether or not he was going to halfway cut Marcus.
Also, the killer has to be really strong to be able to
take Cyrus down
because Cyrus is like a big buff dude.
He's a big guy. Yeah.
He's killed people before, so he's kind of a bit of a gangster.
Yeah, right. Cyrus is like the guy that Chrysler hires to be his bodyguard. So I'm like, this killer has to be pretty like strong or crafty or whatever to be able to take him down. And we will have the actor who plays Cyrus with us next week. So if you want to tweet at us questions to ask him,
yes, please do.
Please do.
We were gonna keep it a secret, but yay.
I want you guys to get hyped for Cyrus because I like Cyrus.
Right. I like Cyrus too. And I'm like, just how appropriate is it to have him next week? Not this week because, like you said, I feel like we'd be begging him for spoilers.
Yeah, we'd be like, are you alive or dead? Come on now.
Right. So I'm so excited. So yay, Cyrus.
Yay. So do we have a fan of the week?
We do have a fan of the week. Yay. The fan of the week is Shema Islam, and she brought up a good point a couple days ago, saying that the killer's voice had really different tones. If you go back and kind of listen to like Willem's voice and then listen to the killer's voice in some of those other scenes where it was just like the back of his head. So that was like a big thing for her. So I liked that, and that was a good suggestion as to why we shouldn't believe it's Willem.
I like that too, because if the killer's voice has, because you think of each scene where we've seen, quote unquote, this could be the killer, or that could be the killer, he seems different in each scene. Yeah. So there's something about him maybe that it is chameleon-like he can change his appearance.
Very manipulative.
Yeah, I don't think they had voice changers back then.
Well, because you have just when I even thinking about, so we have him in that one scene putting the mayonnaise gloves on, and then it looked like mayonnaise. So you have him in the one scene putting on his mayonnaise gloves, and then you think of him as like some big dude who can take down Cyrus, but also can mountain climb. So he has to be like lithe enough to mountain climb, but like muscular enough to like take down Cyrus. And then when he's talking to Stevie, he seems like a bearded big dude. So I was like, I don't know. I'm very confused about like putting together an image of this killer right now.
Yeah, he's definitely tall, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Other than that, I don't know.
He's like he's actually more like Spider-Man than Batman, I've decided.
We have had some people in the chat say that he must have grown up to become Spider-Man. So.
Right.
Evil Spider-Man.
From Batman to Spider-Man. And we know, I mean, we interviewed, we had a talk with Douglas, and we know that obviously he's tall. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw the picture that
Douglas is like 800 feet tall.
Right. He's like 802 feet tall. And so the killer was like right beside his character, Marcus, were they like in the roof or like attic
when they're running
like
down that roof hallway situation?
So he's clearly tall because he's like kind of same as Douglas, and we know that he's ginormous.
Yes.
So yeah. But I'm excited. I'm excited for next week. I'm more excited about this book drawing.
So we're gonna we have 4 weeks left. We have 4 books. So we're gonna do a drawing for this week and then 3 other weeks, basically.
For the next 4 weeks, yes.
Yeah. So we have our old-timey hat, as promised.
As promised.
It's
and
upside
she,
down.
can I just say, like, she came in wearing it, and I'm like, oh, yes, Gilded Age. So cute. But anyway.
I'm so glad.
I would do a virtual...
Takira, you grab one.
Okay, sure.
Drum roll.
Virtual drum roll.
Oh, we get an actual drum roll.
Yay.
There's a contest winner.
The first contest winner is Elsa Reyes.
Congratulations, Elsa.
Congratulations.
Love your name. It's a great name.
think we will get your information to mail you the Alienist book. We're so excited. Congratulations.
And if you didn't win this week, you will still be entered in the contest for the next weeks. And if you want to enter, there is still time to enter.
Yes, there is a link. We've tweeted it a couple of times. It'll be on our page. There's a link that you use to fill out your information, to follow us. It's crystal clear, all in the link. So do that, and we will draw another name next week.
Yeah.
Any thoughts about what you guys think might happen next week? I don't even know. This is
And now,
predictions.
your AfterBuzz TV predictions.
I just have to say, I haven't heard the alien prediction music in so long in AfterBuzz. I thought they did away with it, but they didn't, and I'm so glad.
Yes,
We're
thank
stepping
you,
up our
Steve.
game this week.
We
So
are.
glad.
We got the lights and everything. I'm gonna let you guys go first.
I'm gonna say Cyrus is alive because I don't want my dreams to die.
Yes, I do think that. I think Cyrus is alive. I think we're gonna see maybe another person step into the mix, whether it be like someone that they're looking for, someone that's helping hide the killer, his steps. I feel like there's gonna be another person, however that may go, into the mix of the killer and our steps closer to figure out who it is.
I think I'm going to have to go with one of the people in the chat brought up that John's going to be just like really PO'd that Chrysler slapped Sarah.
Yes.
So I think in the next episode he's going to find out and he's going to be like, no, you didn't.
Yes.
We're gonna figure out who's the bigger man.
We're gonna have some
be a
love quadrangle
showdown.
fights.
right.
We're going to see if that arm really works or not. I think.
Right. Oh Lord. But anyway.
Which arm did he slap him with? I didn't even think about that. Did he slap him with?
It
his-
was the left.
Okay. So
Because, yeah. She
it was
went-
not his. It was not his supposedly
Yeah,
not
she
working
did.
arm.
Yeah, she did this side. So, yeah.
Because that would have been crazy if then he was like, now my arm works to
He was
slap
like,
you.
"Wait."
Right. Just kidding.
Yeah.
right.
Oh, wait, that one doesn't work.
Cut. Sorry,
Oh my
guys.
god.
I think this show evolves around the details. So I would hope. Obviously, I have faith that they wouldn't let that happen unless it hashtag means something, and they were like, "Oh
That's
crap,
true.
what about his arm?" But anyway,
That's true. They took all the time to paint New York in the photography backdrop, but they just had Chrysler use
Right.
whatever arm he wants.
whatever arm.
Oh, we just had one other prediction in the chat. Noja York said that I believe the killer is a duo, a postman working as a lookout on the roof and a rich master hiding in the prostitute rooms.
I think that would make sense because then that fills the fact that to me mayonnaise hand guy doesn't match with like big burly guy, and then we have the two profiles where you have like an immigrant killer, but then you have like an aristocratic killer.
Yeah.
That's true.
That would
That's a
make
good
sense.
suggestion.
That is a good
Yeah.
one. Keep on
What if
coming.
one of the duo is like a priest and that
Yeah.
is part of his
You're like stuck on the. Well, I don't
good
know. I mean, they
guess.
have
I
the
don't
calendar
know.
that they're going
I'm
off of.
stuck
I
on
mean,
the weird religious angle.
Yeah, I don't know. But never know. We'll see.
Well,
But I
any of you
cannot wait.
Episcopalians in the chat, let us know what the next
Yeah.
What the next holiday
is going to be.
Yeah, true.
Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. We will see you next week. I'm 123 Jackie B on all platforms.
And I'm Alice L. Ford on Twitter and at Alice's Adventures on Earth and everything else.
And I'm Takira Shabrae. You can find me on Instagram and newly to Twitter at Takira_Shabrae.
Thank you guys for tuning in. See you next week.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.